In this lesson, we will explore the relationship between gender and the life experience in your host country. We should start defining gender in an appropriate way. Although this term has been given the same meaning of sex, they are indeed two different concepts. Sex refers to biological aspects, namely the fact of being woman or man. Instead, gender refers to women's and men's roles, identity, status, and responsibilities in a specific society. While sex is innate, gender relations and gender differences are historically, geographically, and culturally specific. Hence, what a woman or a man is expected to be or to do varies through space and over time. Your experience in the host country may raise issues in relation to how the host society expects you to behave as a man or as a woman. Traveling has therefore a gender dimension. In some countries, for instance, women are more likely to be affected by religious and cultural duties than in others, being called to comply, for example, with specific dress codes. Also, men may be affected by social expectations. This is especially true when gender intersects with other personal characteristics as age, sexual orientation, ethnic origin, or religion. For instance, in some societies, an adult man is expected to be married with a woman and have children. Considering the variety of cultural, social, and religious habits in the world, the gender dimension of your trip may get a different content according to your destination. If your destination is culturally different from your home country, you should take into consideration the gender dimension of your trip before leaving. Moreover, in such culturally different contexts, you may feel discriminated because of your gender. Instead, if you are not fully aware of the social, cultural, and religious habits related to gender in your host society, you may be consciously or unconsciously disrespectful with local people because of their gender or even discriminate them. Let's focus first on discrimination. Discrimination is any distinction or exclusion or restriction based on personal characteristics. In light of your gender, you may be discriminated openly because of the social roles ascribed to your gender or in a more covert way. Discrimination may also arise in case of harassment, namely when you are intimidated or humiliated as a woman or as a man, and in case of abuse, leading to gender-based violence. How can you find protection when, while being abroad, you are victim of this discrimination? When you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, you may try avoiding an open and direct conflict. For example, in some countries, some public spaces, like bars, may be socially reserved to men. In this context, the easiest way to avoid a conflict is trying to understand local habits, to assess the seriousness of the situation, and to behave accordingly. In the most serious cases, including episodes of gender-based violence, you may consult relevant authorities in the host country for receiving protection. In most cases, an appropriate investigation will start. However, if the local national system relies on different ideas of equality between men and women, you should not expect the same treatment you may find in your home country. Remember that protection against gender discrimination is granted also at the international level. Let's now consider the opposite situation: being disrespectful or discriminate local people. When you live in your country, you may not feel pressured to pay attention to gender differences and habits. However, in other countries, your behavior may acquire a different meaning for people around you. And sometimes these people may feel even discriminated or offended because of your actions. Hence, the advice I give you is to be informed about the social and cultural characteristics of your destination connected to gender, to try understanding them and consider if your behavior may be perceived as offensive, to identify intersections between gender and other personal characteristics, such as between gender and religion or ethnic origin and gender, and act accordingly when possible. For example, in some countries, if you are a male, you should not expect that women shake your hands or greet you with a kiss. Should you force them, this may be perceived as offensive. Or, considering the intersection of gender with sexual orientation, regardless of your orientation, you might be expected to be heterosexual in countries where homosexuality and/or same-sexual activities are criminalized. To conclude, let's see some practical tips to make your experience more gender aware. Before leaving, you should get informed. In case of doubts, including what you need to know about your rights, be sure to consult reliable web resources. Check with people who may have already lived a similar experience. Pack according to local habits. Verify any particular record of gender-based violence. Contact, if you are a researcher or a student, a local academic institution or researcher to talk about the gender dimension and implications of researching in your host country. Once in the host country, you should consider how appropriate are your clothes for each context where you find yourself. For example, holy places or institutional buildings may require a stricter dress code as a sign of respect. The behavior to adopt in light of local moral codes. For example, in some countries it is not allowed to kiss your partner in public, especially in most conservative areas or villages. Finally, be aware that in countries with high rates of gender-based violence, you might need to create boundaries by using body language and expressions to avoid any unwanted attention.